Hey everyone, my name is Poisonblade and I hope all of you are doing well today. So for today's video, I am preparing a giant otter habitat, which is set in a Noria that basically became 10 times larger than I had originally intended. But is it really a Poisonblade video if that doesn't happen, if things don't get 10 times larger than intended? So with that being said, let's get straight into today's video. So right off the bat, I want to make this clear. At the point of building this, I did not know that we were going to get giant otters. This was mostly built on Saturday, so I knew that there was like a leak with some animals. I think one of them was a giant otter. But that still didn't make me certain that there were going to be giant otters. I mean, as soon as the update was announced with like the changes to the water features, then I knew like, oh, we're going to get an aquatic thing. But at that point I still didn't know that we were going to get giant otters, so this build is basically a giant gamble. So glad that we're going to get giant otters because I don't really see any other ammo working with this build. But I right now don't have giant otters, and by the time of building this I did not know that we were going to get giant otters because again it was basically just throwing all my ass in the basket of maybe getting giant otters. So with that being said, I should move on to the other thing where I goofed because today is the 2-year anniversary of the channel, and I originally had intended a different kind of video for it, but then in a way this video also really works well because it's basically become a trend that I don't keep up with what I said previously. Because this build was supposed to be a coffee roasting house, so it was supposed to be very, well, much smaller than what I'm building right now. B, I'm not keeping up with the schedule because this was supposed to be a different kind of video. And C, this video was supposed to be me talking about the 2 years that I've been on YouTube, which YouTube is not going to like that video because it's going to talk about mental health. But then I decided I want to build a Noria. Then that Noria became huge, and then I also just thought I want to talk about this build, but I don't want to have the original topic that I was going to talk about be like mushed in there. Like I think, you know, the 2 years on YouTube and the sensitive talk surrounding it to have its own space and not be mushed in with other topics, because then it kind of devaluates, I would say, that topics. So in the end I just decided, alright, this video somehow still fits with the 2-year anniversary. So yes, today, December the 2nd, marks the time that I started YouTube 2 years ago, so yay. And then also I just went full squirrel mode again and I built something huge, and then the original video idea didn't work because usually when I want the voiceover to be more important, then I kind of look for a build that's not as like in your face, that's a little bit more like smaller, and that coffee roasting house would be perfect. But I did not build that, so Sunday we're going to get that video where I talk about 2 years on YouTube and the dark beginnings of the channel basically. So now I should start talking about the actual build because that's the whole point of today's video. So yeah, the Noria. Size doesn't matter, guys, unless you're talking about a Noria. Don't come at me with a Noria with a diameter of less than 20 meters. I think this Noria that I'm building right now is 24. It's larger than any Noria we have in real life. I think the largest Noria that we have right now in real life that's still somewhat intact is like 20 meters. But then Kayan al-Bashar has the habit of taking things from real life but then making them larger. I mean, kind of works with Kayan al-Bashar being all about pretense and everything. But at the time of building this isn't actually a Noria because I goofed again. This video is basically full of me going squirrel mode and then realizing that I made mistakes along the way. But it is in a way a Noria because a normal water wheel, as you usually think of it, has like the spokes going from one central point, kind of like a bicycle wheel. Yeah, I'm showing my inner Dutch here, but it's kind of like that. And then when I look at all of the Norias, they basically have 4 center points from which the beams or the spokes go out of. So in that way it is a Noria because it does have that. but it isn't a Noria because I thought first that the planks or the panels on the outside ring of the, well, now it's still a water wheel, but I originally thought like, oh, those like panels, like they're maybe a little bit like a box kind of shape, and maybe that's going to transport the water. No, that's not how it's supposed to go. The actual thing that, makes the water go up, or that makes it so that the water goes up from usually a river or something like that, and then gets the water up to go into an aqueduct, are actually containers on the side of the outer ring of the Noria. Although I suppose you could also make it on the inner ring, because this Noria has 3 rings actually. Again, it's a huge Noria. Kind of fits with Kayan al-Bashar, because everything in Kayan al-Bashar is larger than it is in real life. Yeah, I later put those containers on outside, or I'm not going to show you guys that I'm putting those containers on because it's 5 minutes. I'm also, so this build was originally intended to be, first of all, a coffee roasting house, but then this space that I'm building it right now on, it was just perfect for a Noria. Like, it's right dead set in the center of the Elysian fields, so it would be very easy here to like transport the water to every area. So if you've seen the coffee farm build, I did talk about like the floating tree there with the water coming out being a temporary thing. This is where the aqueduct was supposed to come from to the coffee farm, so I can now finally do that as well. This build was also supposed to look kind of different. It is based on the Noria, like the big Noria that you can build in Anno 1404, which I'm just going to say it again, but to me that's the best Anno because I don't like future stuff. Like, I don't like anything sci-fi or something, but then I kind of changed it. Well, changed it. There's a Noria that they show in the trailer of Anno 1404, which is set in sort of a ruined building, and I originally wanted to make it look like this was built in like an ancient Greek ruin, but then I also just used the build version or buildable version that you have in Anno 1404, which is set in like a, actually working building. And so basically what ended up happening was I made 2 giant Norias, one smaller one, so kind of going against the statement, don't come at me with the small Noria, because there is a smaller Noria that I built off screen because it's basically the same as the large Noria, it's just smaller. But yeah, there's a small Noria, and then the building that's connected to the Noria, I would say, that's a mixture of ancient Greek building things and, well, it's basically a mix of everything I've used in Kayan al-Bashar. Majorly the just general Arabian style that Kayan al-Bashar has, but it also has like a little bit of a Kurdish style to it in some areas. It has a little bit of like the Moorish, southern Spain, Moroccan style as well. So it's, I mean, this Noria is not supposed to be like privately owned. It's way too important of a place to Kayan al-Bashar to be privately owned, because then you have the risk that things are done cheaply, and then you have the risk of basically starving the entirety of Kayan al-Bashar. Because Kayan al-Bashar, the floating islands, yes, they are pretty. They don't really give up much space for farming. So lore-wise, I do think Kayan al-Bashar imports a lot of food, and then export a lot of luxury items actually, because Kayan al-Bashar so far produces coffee, wine, cedar wood or cedar wood, which is highly priced from what I've read. And then it also has gems, gemstone, or well, gems and gold, and maybe silver in the Mirage Mountains. And then, you just get your complimentary poison, because that's also produced in Kayan al-Bashar. Yeah, so Kayan al-Bashar lore-wise probably imports a lot of food, but it still needs to produce its own, of course, as well. So I don't think that this Noria is like privately owned. I think it's like built by the Sultan slash Emperor of Kayan al-Bashar. Again, lore-wise, that makes sense to have two names for the same person, even though those names are like from, or those titles actually are from like completely different cultures. But lore-wise, I made it all make sense in Kayan al-Bashar. But when it comes to the Noria, I just think that's whoever rules Kayan al-Bashar or is just in charge of Kayan al-Bashar. I don't actually think that the Emperor or the Sultan really is that hands-on when it comes to this Noria. Maybe it's just like someone in his government. I just think it's government owned, but to work here is still like a very prestigious job. At least if you're like higher ranking. If you're just a worker, you're probably not noticed. But if you're like, you know, one of the big bosses up there, then it's probably a prestigious job, because I mean it's so important for Kayan al-Bashar. It supplies like half of the water for Kayan al-Bashar. And so I wanted to make the, well, I built it as an office building, but it's probably not completely an office building. It's just, you know, a building where the people working at the Noria just work. So in a way it's still an office building now that I think about it. But I wanted to, first of all, mix all the styles of Kayan al-Bashar, but then also make it like very, like, you know, a very good looking building. And here's the thing when it comes to Kayan al-Bashar and just in general when it comes to fantasy, I don't like making things too pristine. Like if everything is perfect and such, it's kind of like looking at a painting or something. Like it doesn't really feel real to me. I only feel like fantasy feels real when you do show like the grittiness, like there's abandoned or ruined buildings, or there's a building in construction, like to have some kind of like action feel in whatever you're building, because then it doesn't feel as static. It doesn't feel like you're just in some perfect fantasy world. When it came to this build, it was actually a lot of just like, is this too pristine? Is this too perfect? Or does it work? But then for this building, it kind of makes sense that it's like pristine and really well kept up, because again, it's such an important thing in Kayan al-Bashar. Supplies again half of the water probably, so it's probably makes sense that they are really taking care of this building, because otherwise Kayan al-Bashar would starve. I do think that they're like important grain and such from maybe Valhalla. I like to connect all the projects that I have. Besides Isla Pacifica. Isla Pacifica is supposed to be, well, a fantasy version of our real world back in colonial times, so I'm not connecting Isla Pacifica with Kayan al-Bashar, Valhalla and such, but like Osaru, Valhalla and Kayan al-Bashar, I sort of like to have them set in like the same fantasy world. Like I just like to make up the lore and connect all my projects so far with that lore. But anyway, so at the time of building this, as I said before, I did not, well, I still don't have giant otters. So all of it when it came to like the actual build was kind of just like, yeah, I don't know if this will work. I'm just hoping. So I'm trying to leave as much space when it comes to the actual, you know, walkable area open as much as possible, because I don't know the size requirements. I don't know what like things they want. Although I am probably going to revisit this build when I do get my hands on the giant otters. So that, well, I just want to have like an underwater viewer, or, whoa, that didn't come out right. Underwater viewing area for the giant otter habitat, because I really just like giant otters. They are on my list of animals that I want in Plan Zoo, besides beavers and foxes and sandcats. Again, look up sandcats. They are adorable. I don't think we will get sandcats, it's just like wishful thinking, but I want them. But yeah, when it comes to the actual animals, still kind of beef that we are only getting like, I think one of them is an, well, basically a box animal. Don't know for sure. I mean, one person actually asked me like, oh, what are you going to do with the caimans? And I had no idea that we were getting caimans. I was so intrigued by the giant otters and the penguins, because I sort of fluffy baby penguin. Because a lot of baby animals in Plant Zoo right now are basically a smaller version of their adult version. So having an animal that really looks distinctly different as a baby, like it. Well, we have some animals, like I think baby ostriches looks distinctly different, but then my favorite animal, red panda, are, well, their baby form is basically a smaller adult size. So, yeah, baby red pandas don't look like adults. I'm hopeful that this pack, or the aquatic pack, will be like, hopeful for like the future for things to come, that it will be like a new trend. It's also kind of disappointing. Kind of showing that Frontier hasn't fully changed their approach to packs yet. And yeah, I'm always going to be critical and skeptical, like, that's just who I am. Anyway, so about Giant Otters again. I just really wanted Giant Otters in this build because I just see the Giant Otters as like playing with the water wheel, especially the smaller one. Like, I know that's not going to work when we get the Giant Otters, but I just imagine that like in real life, in Kayan al-Bashar, the Giant Otters would be like playing with the water wheel, and probably especially children would really enjoy that. Also me, I would also enjoy that. Like, otters are just funky animals. Yeah, I really just like the otters, I want them in here. I have no idea if this habitat is going to eventually work for them. I mean, it's probably, well, the right size. It's way too large probably for them actually, because newsflash, all of the habitats in Kayan al-Bashar so far are way too large for the animals that are in them. Especially like, I have a pangolin habitat, which is an entire castle. Again, it's not a Poisonblade build if it's not 10 times larger than what I had originally intended or what the animal actually needs. This habitat, it was basically, well, I still have the backup of like maybe putting in pygmy hippos or regular sized hippos in it, because I think it's large enough actually for normal sized hippos as well. And also this again is the reason why today's video is not what I want, well, it's not what I originally intended to make, because again, it was supposed to be that, serious 2 years on YouTube talk video. But this build just, it needed to be talked about. And again, like that, the topic that I originally wanted to talk about or intended to talk about deserves its own video. I don't want to smush it in together with something like this, because then it's just going to be like a tidbit and then that devaluates that entire topic, so that was not going to happen. But as I said, when it comes to this build, I wanted to mix styles that are in Kayan al-Bashar, so we are having Greek columns, but then the horseshoe arches from, well, I only have used the reference from like the Alhambra in Spain, but I do think that they're also like in Morocco and such, so kind of that area mixed with then Greek, and then there's the general Arabian style to it, and then there's a small bit of actually Kurdish influence as well, with a roof in a certain area. And yes, this building has a dome. I did not film building the dome, well I did, but I timed it, and it takes me 5 minutes to build a dome. And that was mostly because I wanted to have like a bit more of a special dome. 5 minutes sped up is probably like 30 seconds in a video. So that was just like, yeah, is it really necessary for me to show 30 seconds of me building a dome? Nah, probably not. Let's not do that. I mean, there's actually a lot of things that I had to cut out for today's video, because, well, I think I cut out like an hour worth of footage or like time-lapse footage, because I don't like it when my videos go over 25 minutes anymore. Like, I used to make 30 minutes long videos, but then I just thought like, yeah, I don't have the time to watch a 30-minute video, or I don't like watching a 30-minute video. It's too much of a commitment when it comes to time for me. So why should I then start making 30 minutes video? Because, or why am I making 30-minute videos when I wouldn't watch through it myself? That basically was also a lesson that I learned on YouTube. If I don't like watching it myself, then it's not really a video I should be making. That's one of the lessons that I learned in the 2 years on YouTube, but again, I'm going to talk fully about everything in Sunday's video, probably. I say probably because again, it's like a sensitive topic, so it might be... I mean, I'm really cheerful and happy now. I will probably get emotional in that video because not everything is perfect. So, yeah, not every... Again, like, talking about, like, mental health, like, already kind of shows, like, yeah, especially in the start, not everything was going well. But anyway, of course, I added a grain field because we're still in the Elysian Fields, and this is the farming area of Kayan al-Bashar, and even though they're probably importing a lot of foods, they also should produce as much as possible themselves, because Kayan al-Bashar is kind of isolated. And I kind of toyed around with how an aqueduct would look, but I don't end up really placing it, because, I mean, that's for the time when we revisit this habitat when I actually get my hands on giant otters. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you do, there is the like button. If you want to see more, there's the subscribe button. And there's a button that is surely going to unleash Ragnarok or the end of times on us. It's shaped like a bell, so maybe it's just ringing when the end of times comes upon us, because whenever it works, that's just going to happen. And then I wish you all an amazing day. Again, the 2 years on YouTube talk is going to happen on Sunday, but you can still consider this the anniversary video because I've basically done everything that I've done on the channel so far. Not keeping up with the schedule, not keeping up with what I originally said, and making buildings 10 times larger than I originally intended. So again, hope you enjoyed the video, and bye bye.